Hey there, it is test 1 review. I wanted to work through the review sheet that you can find on Blackboard. I thought that I would go through and work around one of each kind of problem. So I'll try to work through it pretty quickly. You can always stop and pause if you need to go back and forth. Okay, let's start with number 1. I'm just going to start with A. Convert the following radicals to rational exponent notation. Okay, that's writing, we're looking at this one, oops, right here. That would be taking the 9x minus 1. Parentheses are very important. Okay, it's raised to the 4th power, and it's the 7th root. I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so 4th power. Okay, things to remember. This is your answer. Do not forget these parentheses. Very, very important. Okay, look at C over here. We have 5x minus 3. Okay, take 5x minus 3. You got to raise it to the power. Okay, so it's to the 1st power. And since it's the square root, that's an understood 2. That's your answer. That's rational exponent notation because the exponent is a fraction. Okay, number 2, convert the following to radical notation. This is just going backwards. Let's look at C right here. Okay, so we have 3x minus 5. All right, we're doing radical notation. So first of all, it's raised to the 7th power. And then right there, that's the root, which is the 8th root. This is your answer. Very simple. All you'll have to do is to be able to go backwards and forwards with that. Let's see, we've got rationalize the denominator. Yeah, let's do one of these. To rationalize the denominator, okay, that simply means that we want to get rid of the square root of 6. I'm going to look at A. Okay, so remember the method for using this is we're going to multiply that fraction. Right, you just pick whatever one you're trying to get, which is, this is the denominator. We're going to use 1 minus square root of 6. And since we multiply the bottom, we'll multiply the top. This is our method. Right here. Now, when we do this, the only thing you want to multiply out is the bottom one, right? You have to full first, outer, inner, last. So on the top, I did not multiply that out. Just going to rewrite it. The bottom, you have 1 times 1. The 2 outer there is negative 1 square root of 6. Let's do the inner. Positive 1 square root of 6, and finally the last. That would be square root of 6 times square root of 6. Negative square root of 6 is negative square root of 36. And let's simplify that. The top is going to stay the same. On the bottom, these inner parts right there, the outer and the inner, they subtract out to 0. So we have 1 minus, and then the square root of 36 is 6. Okay, now the rest of it is just simplifying. 1 minus 6 is negative 5. And do not forget, cross out anything we can. 20 and negative 5 have a common 5, so we can take out a negative 5. If we take out a negative 5, that leaves us negative 4. So my final answer, right here. Here we go. That's rationalizing the denominator. All right. Rationalize the numerator. Okay. Let's do one of these. Let's look at A. Right here at A. Same thing, same steps, except the square root is up in the numerator here. So we're still going to use the same term, but at opposite sign. So square root of x minus 6. And I have to multiply top and bottom. Right there. Just like the last one, only multiply out the numerator, since this is the one we're trying to simplify. It's the numerator. So we have first square root of x times square root of x, square root of x squared. Outer, inner, And finally, last, 6 times negative 6. And there we go. On the bottom, no need to multiply that out. Keep it like it is with the hopes that it simplifies. All right, from here we have in the numerator, square root of x squared is just x. These subtract out to give you 0 minus 36. So hopefully you can see now that you can cross out a common x minus 36. Put it in red. Those can cross out, leaving you 1. Right? So my final answer is 1 over square root of x minus 6. There. Please don't forget when you cross out that x minus 36 in the numerator that you still have to leave it with something to hold the place, which would be 1. Okay, I'm going to solve number 5. Solve linear equations. I'm going to do B. So it's a fraction. I want to practice what to do when we have denominators. So look for a common denominator. We've got 5 and 3, and look, 2 right there is like it's over 1. So we're going to use 15, and you can multiply, let's see, every term by 15. I'm going to scribble it up here instead of repeating. Okay, I'm going to multiply the first. Also the 2, that is a separate term, so you got to multiply that by 15. And the last one, multiply that by 15. All right, so by doing that, you're still good because you have crossed out. Now keep in mind, right there, I multiplied, that 15 is multiplied by the 2. So let's cross out what we can. Let's see, in the first one, we can take a 5 out. That leaves me a 3. Right? And then the last one, we can take a 3 out. You're dividing it out, that leaves a 5. So we are left with, okay, 3 times 4, so that's 12. Times x minus 2. Plus 2 times 15 is 30. Equals, and then we're going to multiply 5 through 5. Well, let's see. I'll write it. I'll take it in steps. Times 5. You could have put that 5 in the front if you wanted to. Doesn't matter. Now we have no more fractions. We have a regular equation. So let's keep going. 12 times x. 12 times 2. Same thing here. 5 times 5. And 5 times 2. What do we have? We have 12x. Let's see. Negative 24 plus 30 is plus 6. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm going to subtract. Let's see. What do I want to do? I'm going to take 12 and subtract it from both sides. 12x. And now I'm going to take 10 and subtract it from both sides. That gives me, on the left side, I have negative 4. And this would be 13x. We're almost done. Final step, divide both sides by 13. Those cross out. X equals negative 4/13. There we go. Okay, that's linear equations with when there's a fraction. Let's see what we have next. To the next page. All right, what do we have? Linear inequalities. Let's do A. Just a basic linear inequality. So working it out, let's get rid of our parentheses. This is A we're doing, so see what we have. So 9x minus, and 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, negative 11x plus 9x is negative 2x. Right, let's take 3 to the other side. We get 5 plus 3. 8. Okay, final step. This is where you really can tell we're with an inequality. I have to divide both sides by -2. Because it is negative, please remember those cross out, but you've got to change the direction of the sign. There we go. Don't forget to change the direction when you divide by a negative number, which was -2. Okay, this is my answer, but we have to write it in interval notation. So this is what it would look like. All right. Here's -4. X is everything less than or equal to. Okay, so here's my solution. So that goes from -infinity to -4. Okay, because it was equal to or closed dot, that's like putting a bracket. This is how you would type in your answer. Okay, let's see. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Okay, solving the equations. Now, there are a bunch of these. Remember, we have different methods. So, to solve the equations, the first step we have, and let's look at 8. Let's look at 8a. Is that okay? For solving equations, then we need to set this thing equal to 0. We're hoping it factors. So, I'm going to bring all these terms over to the left side. That gives us, I'm going to remember, add 4x over and then subtract 21. That leaves 0 on the right side. Now I have it set up. Try to factor. And it does. 7 times 3. Nice. Which is great. If it factors, then remember what you do. You take each factor, right, set it equal to 0, right, and then solve. You should get 2 possible answers. We're going to subtract 7 to the other side. There's 1. Same thing with 3. We're going to add it to the other side. 3. So 2 answers, -7 and 3. B is the same thing. You ought to be able to factor that. All right. We're going to skip it just for time's sake. Let you work it. Same thing with C. That's a factoring. Okay. We'll do that one. So we're going to look at C. If you can factor, let's see if it does. It's already set equal to 0, which is nice. We have 3x and x. It's trial and error. I'm going to do 3 times 1 plus and minus. That works. So once you do that, set each one equal to 0 and solve. Just like that. You just got to get it factored. Be careful. Make sure you factor it correctly. Therefore, you can solve. And we have x equals 1/3, because those cancel. Over here, we're going to subtract 3, so we get x equals -3. All right, so that's solving by factoring. D is the same way. Let's go up here. This is the square root method. Let's look at E. Let me do that. Okay, square root method. We want to isolate the x minus 5 squared, so that means let's clear that 1 to the other side. Get 81. Now we can use the square root method. So remember, when we take the square root of both sides to help us, cannot forget to do plus and minus. The left side, that's an understood 2, right? So these cancel, and you have x minus 5. The other side, it happens to be a perfect square, so we have plus and minus 9. Okay, from there we're almost done. Solving for x, we can add 5 to the other side, so that would be 5. Right, we added that to the other side. All right, because it ended up being an actual perfect square and we got 9, let's find the actual answers. 14 and -4. Boom. Okay, I didn't do 6, but you very well could get an answer that has a square root in it that's not a perfect square. So be prepared with that. You certainly can. You can always check the problems we did in class too. Let's keep going. Let's see. With the cubes here, basically you're just factoring. Let's look at G. We can factor out an x. That leaves x squared. Okay, it's just factoring out one of the x's. So we have, don't forget that x though, that's important. 8 and 2. What would that be? We need 16. Negative and negative. Okay, you have 3 things being factored. Set all 3 factors equal to 0. You're going to get 3 answers. All right, so we get 0, 8, and 2. 3 different answers, 0, 8, and 2. Remember, the original problem right here was x cubed, which means there's a good chance that we'll have 3 answers. H is very similar, so I'm just going to skip that and let you work it. Let's look at, let's look at I right here. This is x to the 4th. Remember the one with x to the 4th? There's only one kind you'll see, and these are 2 examples of the same kind. Let's try to factor it. But remember, we have x to the 4th, so chances are great we'll have 4 answers. We can factor this into x squared, right? And we'll do 5 times 1. All right, so set each one equal to 0. Sorry, x squared minus 5. Set each one equal to 0 and solve. We're going to use the square root property because we're solving for x squared. Okay, so let's add our 5 over. Do not forget, that's not the answer. You have to take the square root using the square root property. So this left side, we get x equals plus and minus square root of 5. And you'll do the same thing for the right side. Add 1 over. Take the square root, plus and minus. We get x is plus and minus the square root of 1, but please don't write it that way. That is plus and minus 1. 4 different answers. Okay? All right, let's see what keep going. All right, here's the one with the radical. Why don't we do A? Okay, when you have that radical, remember the way we do it? This is the one that you have to end up checking your answer. So we've got to get 10 minus 5x out from underneath that radical sign. So I'm going to recopy it. But what we can do is isolate it, make sure it's by itself, which it is. And now we can square the square root. You have to square both sides. By doing that, these cross out. We have 10 minus 5x on that side, which is great. No more radical sign. On the right, this is x plus 8 squared, so x plus 8 times x plus 8. No more square root. We have to multiply this out. So look on the right side. We're going to FOIL this out. Outer. Inner. And last. Okay, that gives me x squared, 16x. Okay, and then let's bring the right side down. 10 minus 5x. All right, we're left with a quadratic. Let's bring the left side over to the right side. I'm going to do that by adding and subtracting. So 10, I want to subtract 10 from both sides. And then negative 5x, let's add 5x. All right, that gives me 0. And we should be left with a polynomial. That's 16 plus 5, that's what, 21x. And 64 minus 10 is 54. Okay, not the easiest to look at, but it should factor. let's see. Oh, goodness, what would that be? 54. And it's all pluses. That's going to be 18 times 3. So, let's see. XX. 18 times 3. And 18 plus 3 is 21, right? So, it factored. I'm running out of room. We solve this. We get 2 possible answers. Remember, this one would be x equals negative 18. X equals negative 3. Okay, remember we've talked about this before, that whenever we do this process, there's the chance that we could get a false positive. So we must check. Let's check. And you do that by taking the number, like negative 18, plug it into the original problem. So I'm going to do it over here. Let's check. Let's do negative 18 first. Okay. It's kind of some big numbers, but let's see. 10 minus 5 times 18 equals, we're doing negative 18, right? So that's my bad. 5 times negative 18 equals negative 18 plus 8. Okay, let's see what we get. 8 times 5 is 90, is that right? It's plus 90. Negative 10. All right, square root of 100 is 10. 10 does not equal negative 10. Okay, so it does not check, which means negative 18 is not a part of the solution. So if we check negative 3, it should work. Kind of running out of room. I'll put it right here. Let's plug it in again to the same problem. Negative 3. Negative 3 plus 8. Left side, we got 10 plus 15, which is 5. And right here, we have negative 3 plus 8 is 5. 5 equals 5, which means it works. So my final answer, there's only one that works, which is negative 3. Okay? I kind of scribbled all over that. I apologize. We're going to keep moving, okay? Solve the following by completing the square. Let's do A. Okay, so to complete the square, I'm going to be checking your work. To start, we're going to start with this. We're going to clear the negative 2 to the other side, and it becomes positive 2. And notice I left room to the right of the negative 14 to add the correct number. Remember, we want to complete the square. We want to create a perfect square. The way you get that number is you take 14, right there. You half it. Just divide by 2, you get 7. And then you square it. So you got to half it and square it. So we're basically adding 49 to the left. So we have to add 49 to the right. Okay? We've created a perfect square on the left side. So this left side part, immediately we can factor it to x minus 7. Okay, so remember, the x comes from here. The minus came from right in front of the 14. And the 7 was the number you got when you halved 14. X minus 7 squared. And on the other side, we get 51. So now let's finish it. X minus 7 squared. We're going to use the square root property. Take the square root of both sides. Plus and minus. So on the left side, this all cancels. We get x minus 7 plus and minus the square root of 51. We are almost done. X by itself, we want to add 7 to the other side. So we get 7 plus or minus square root of 51. There we go. Alrighty, that's completing the square. And we'll keep going. Okay, I know I'm going kind of fast. Solve using the quadratic formula. We certainly can do that. Remember the quadratic formula. B squared. Make sure I'm trying to be neat. There's my formula, and we're going to work A. So I'm going to come over here and list. A is 2, right? B is -5. C is -9. Let's see how this works out. Let's plug it into our formula. Negative, B is -5, so negative B. All right, B squared, -5 squared minus 4AC. All over 2A. It's kind of a lot. Let's just take your time to simplify. Okay, -5 gives you +5. 25. Let's see, is that 72, I think? 9 times 8. 9 times 8. 72. I think that's right. All over 4. Let's keep going. 97, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 97. Doing this all kind of on my head. In my head. All right. I think that's right. Check yourself. You can always go back and check to see if we have the right answer, but I'm pretty sure that is it. Okay. Hopefully so. I'm kind of working through this a little fast, but hopefully I didn't make a mistake on that. Check yourself if I did. I don't have time right now to check it, so hopefully so. Okay. All right, those are a bunch of solving equations. So now we we actually covered these earlier, but on the review we're doing it a little later. This is perform the indicated operation. So this is some from the review sections. This is where you have to add and subtract common terms. So I'm going to work A. I'm going to recopy it so it's a little bit larger to see. All they're wanting you to do is combine it into one fraction. We're not solving equations. There's no equal sign. It's just mainly getting common denominators. All right. So let's see what we're going to do. We're going to use the common denominator. We just multiply the two denominators together. All right, and we're going to convert each fraction. So the first one, we had 3x over x minus 2. Remember what's new? The new is that x plus 1, so we got to put an x plus 1 up there. Same thing on the second one. We had x over x plus 1, so this is what's new. So we have two fractions that are still the same fractions, except they're the same denominator. Once you do that, we can combine the whole thing into the common denominator. We just have a lot of multiplying together. Be careful with this subtraction. So let's multiply it out. Oops. We have, do that, minus, there we go. Alrighty. 3 times x and 3 times 1. And same thing here, negative x times on both of them. Squared minus x squared plus 2x. Combine any common terms that we have. 3x squared minus, that's a 1x squared. So that would be 2x squared. And then 3x plus 2x is 5x. Here we go. And that is it. That's my answer. You're just looking for a single fraction. Once you've subtracted two fractions and you get a single fraction. That's all they're asking for right there. Okay. Getting close to the end. I think these are the last two, maybe? Last two. This is simplify the following rational expression. Okay. Also, state the values that must be excluded. This is a two-part question. So first, let's simplify. Let's just do A. To simplify, I'm going to write it a little bigger just so we can see it. So to simplify, you want to try to factor. Okay. Factor in the first one. We have 28, and that's 7 times 4. Okay, 7 minus 4, so there it factored. In the denominator, difference of two squares, so that's x minus 7, x plus 7. So it factored, which is good. So they ask you first to simplify. So simplifying, you cross out your common factors. Your simplified answer is right here, x plus 4 over x plus 7. That's all we're asking you to do. It's simplified. Okay, that was the first part. The second part was what values must be excluded. Right, be excluded. This is dealing with the denominator. Okay. So to figure out what needs to be excluded, you go back and you look right back here. You look at the problem before we crossed out the x minus 7. They are the values that make the denominator right there 0. So in that case, we have two values. The first one that was crossed out right here that I'm kind of drawing on, if you set that equal to 0, you would get 7. The second one right here would be negative 7. Do not forget, it's two values. A lot of people want to only look at this one, but you also look at the one right there that was crossed out. That's my answer. Please don't forget that. Okay, finally, let's do the complex rationals. I don't know, let's do B. What's that? Remember my shortcut method. We are just trying to simplify, which means turn all of this with 4 different fractions into one main fraction. My shortcut method is look at all the denominators and find something common to all of them, which would be m times n, right? mn. That's what we're going to multiply by. So let's do it. I'm going to do it in blue. Okay, so here I'm going to recopy it just so it's a little bit larger for me. Whenever in. All right, and remember we're multiplying by mn, so we're going to use m times n. All right, multiply every term. M times n in the top and in the bottom. M times n. There you go. Do all 4. By doing that, you ought to be able to cross out. So I can cross out m's and n's. So in the numerator, I have 9 times n and 1 times m. In the denominator, we have, cross out our n's, 3m minus 2n. That is my answer. Okay, I know I went through it kind of quickly, but hopefully this helps. Look, I only worked one of each problem. You can always try to rework it and then work the other ones. This is the best way to study for your test. Remember, on the last board, under the notes tab. Okay? Good luck, guys. I hope everything with the test goes well. Bye-bye. Yeah, 2 pages. These are the answers, so you can check yourself. Remember, you can get this on Blackboard. Okay?